Welcome, everyone, to SI Media with Jimmy Traina. Thank you so much for listening. First time appearance on the podcast this week for the voice of college football on CBS, Brad Nessler. Love talking to Brad about his career, play-by-play for everything, college football, college basketball, the NFL, the NBA. A lot of reminiscing about his long career. And you need to stay to the end of the interview for when I asked Brad, who is good friends with Ric Flair, about who is the bigger partier, Ric Flair or Bill Raftery. He gave a great answer to that. So Brad Nessler from CBS is the guest this week, followed by my buddy Sal Licata and our Traina Thoughts segment, as we do each week. Before we get to it, we've had a phenomenal run of guests lately. You guys have been listening, and I appreciate it. Could use a little more reviews on Apple. I mean, step up the Apple reviews if you can, but you guys have been listening. Numbers have been great, so I appreciate it. If you've missed any recent episodes, Kevin Clark from ESPN was on the podcast last week, Scott Van Pelt 2 weeks ago, Brian Curtis, Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Mad Dog Russo, all recent guests on SI Media with Jimmy Traina. So give those a listen if you have not. Make sure you subscribe to SI Media with Jimmy Traina, and if you can leave a review on Apple, probably read it next week or the week after, not sure. All right, let's get to this week's episode. Brad Nessler, the voice of college football on CBS, followed by Sal Licata and Traina Thoughts, all right here, right now on SI Media with Jimmy Traina. All right, joining me now, first time for me on the SI Media podcast, long overdue, main voice of CBS's college football coverage, long-time play-by-play man, one of the best out there, Brad Nessler. Brad, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. How are you?
Hey, you got it, Jimmy. How you doing?
I'm doing well. And I keep saying on all these podcasts, I'm doing well now that football is back. And that includes college and CBS now with the Big Ten. Talk to me a little bit, if you don't mind. I want to just start with SEC out, Big Ten in. For you as the play-by-play man at CBS, the lead voice, you like it? Is it more work? You got to learn a new conference. You love those SEC stadiums. You got tired of those SEC stadiums. Give me what it's like. Give me something on what it's like to go from the SEC now to the Big Ten for CBS.
Yeah, you know what? I never get tired of the stadiums. I never get tired of where I am on Saturday afternoon. When you've done the SEC as many years as I did, and it's not just the 8 years recently after taking over for Verne. But, when I was with Todd Blackledge for 8 years, the majority of our games were SEC night games. And so, you get accustomed to the places, the people, the athletic directors, the coaches, to a certain degree, the players, although with the transfer portal, you don't get too used to those guys anymore. But, yeah, there's a comfort zone with that. The travel was easier. I live in the SEC in Georgia. So, there's times that I got home at night after the game, albeit very late at night on Saturday night, but I got home a few times over the years. So that was good. Sleep in your own bed. But, the transition to the Big Ten has not really been that big a deal. We did some Big Ten games last year. When Gary and I first started, that's what we did back in 92 when we started together the first time. We did Big Ten for several years. And so just going back now, a couple of weeks ago, I was at Iowa City, and I've known Kirk Ferentz for all 26 of his head coaching career. And I knew him as an assistant to Hayden Fry, and I knew him even when he was an offensive line coach for the Browns back when I was at CBS the first time when I did NFL and college games. So, familiar faces show up in different places. Everybody kind of moves around. It's not that I don't know the coaches, and some of the young guys I'm just starting to get to know. But some of the old guys in the SEC aren't there anymore. And I don't mean to call Nick old, but, we did a lot of Coach Saban's games. And so you get used to certain things, but new spot, new conference, nationwide conference, coast to coast, new challenges, I guess. But a lot of the same stadiums and a lot of the same faces that I knew the first time around.
Is there a college football stadium you have not called a game in that you would like to call a game in?
Yeah, I only have one. Only have one that I haven't done. Let's call it Power 5, Power 4, major college. I've never done a game at Notre Dame.
That makes sense network. With NBC. Yeah.
Never worked for NBC. Yeah.
And you had
So
Notre Dame
I've
Purdue
done
last
every
week, but
stadium I can think
the game
of.
was in Purdue. So,
Yeah, done a lot of Notre Dame road games, and I've done Notre Dame basketball there. So I kind of know the campus a little bit, but I've never done a game in that stadium. And I'll probably never get a chance to. But that's the only one I can think of. Every place else I've been, pretty much. And we were talking about rivalry games and all that when we did Iowa State a couple of weeks ago. I can't think of a major rivalry that I haven't done. So from that standpoint, it's pretty fulfilling to have, been all the places you wanted to do and do all the rivalry games you wanted to do, the trophy games and all of that. But yeah, Notre Dame, I'd like one shot at doing a game there.
that's amazing that's the one stadium, but it makes sense with NBC airing those games for so many years. You mentioned your partner Gary Danielson. You guys will also have the Big Ten championship game. You'll be on the call for that when the season wraps up. Give me, I'm fascinated. Guys like you have been in the business for so long. One of the things about play-by-play men is someone like you especially, you've had some unbelievable analysts to work with. Obviously, you with Gary now, Todd Blackledge, you mentioned. I know you've worked with Dick Vitale over at ESPN. I saw something where you even worked with Paul McGuire, who is a classic, who doesn't really get the credit he deserves of being one of those old-timey sort of analysts. Take me through, if you don't mind. I'd love to hear some of your favorite analysts and who you've really loved working with over the years. Any sport, doesn't matter.
Yeah, okay. Well, I started with Gary. Well, actually, I'll go back to CBS when I was first there. I was with Dan Jiggets doing college games. And then when I did NFL games, I usually did them with a variety of guys because I was sort of the swing NFL guy. But I got a chance to work with Dan Fouts a few times when Verne would go with John Madden, when Pat was doing the U.S. Open tennis. And so I got a little flavor of different guys there. Hank Stram, Merlin Olsen, a bunch of different guys there. And then when I moved to ESPN, Gary and I started in '92 together, and we were together 8 years. And then they switched things up. And then I was with Bob Greasy and Lynn Swan for 10 with Bob, actually.
Oh,
But then the last couple of years, Swanee ran for governor of Pennsylvania. So McGuire came in, and that was some of the most fun 2 years, man. Being him and he and Greasy and I, that was a lot of fun. Then Todd Blackledge for 8 years at ESPN and ABC, and then back with Gary. This is my 8th year back with Gary. So I haven't really had that many in football. It's been big stretches. Gary and I say that we got married in '92, we got divorced, and we got remarried like 8 years ago. So we've been together. We've been together 15 years now, on and off. And basketball, yeah, a lot of games with Dick. Oh, Mr. Nessler, and he was a riot. It's like walking into a game with Elvis, every week. And Bill Raftery, just one of the most charming, funnest guys to be around that I can think of. Did a lot of games with Jimmy Dykes in the SEC, Sean Farnham. Did the NBA with Bill Walton, so those are all the guys. And I was trying to write down sideline reporters. I bet I've had 100. I'm not kidding. And I don't even know if I can go back and find all those people and remember everybody, but a lot of great people I work with.
No disrespect to any of the people you mentioned, but the trifecta of Vitale, Raftery, and Walton is pretty special right there.
Yeah. Bill and I were on different planets. I'm not sure he was on different planets with everybody he knew. Great guy. Just, he was out there and I would try to reel him back and there was no reeling him. He was too big a fish. Dick, I could at least reel in occasionally if I could get his attention. And Raft's probably the easiest one of the three to work with. So, all different personalities, all fun guys to be around.
That's phenomenal. And we mentioned Verne. You went in and Verne retired. You filled in, replaced Verne when he left college football. Was it tough to replace a legend like Verne, or it was time for Verne to go? You've been doing it for so long. What was it like replacing Verne on CBS?
It's always tough taking over for somebody that's a legend, and I kind of did it at ABC and ESPN when Keith left and then Brent left. And so I was, we were rotating the BCS national championships during that time. when Keith was almost on his way out and Brent was getting ready to go to the SEC network or whatever. So, I kind of did it before. I think it was, I was prouder of the Verne one because Verne and I had been friends for a long, long time when he was doing his last game, or his last season rather, of Dallas Cowboys radio. I was in my first year doing the Atlanta Falcons on radio. So we had met and I really admired his work so much. And then he was, I think, a little bit instrumental in me getting my gig at CBS the first time. He kept bugging Chuck Milton and Ted Shaker and those guys. Said, "There's this young guy down in Atlanta. You got to listen to him." I think he bugged him enough that they finally heard some of my play-by-play calls on NFL films or something. And I had something probably to do with me getting my first gig with CBS. So yeah, Verne was a good mentor to have for sure. And I think, when he knew he was in his last year and that I was probably coming in, I think he was really comfortable with that because he thought his chair and his headset were going to be in good hands with me. And I felt the same way doing it.
Yeah, I should have mentioned, Brad and Gary Danielson will have USC Michigan this week, which in this new college football world that even I'm having trouble understanding with conferences and who's where and a conference with two teams. And It is bizarre. I mean, Indiana UCLA was the NBC game last week, and there's games on True TV. It is a bizarre season from a television standpoint. And USC Michigan, not a game you'd ever see on CBS in the past. Here it is this week. That's got to be. I mean, you have these two historic franchises in the college football world. I would imagine you're pumped up for this Saturday to do that game.
Yeah, no doubt. I didn't think we'd ever see this. I guess they played one time in the regular season, 1958, but I was in diapers, so I don't remember that one. But this would usually be at 5:30, in Pasadena for the Rose Bowl on January 1st to have a matchup like this. And they've met 8 times before in the Rose Bowl. So when you look at it, I think fans that aren't quite used to the different landscape, I guess, in college football and look at it and go, wow, Michigan and USC are playing. What is that, a bowl game? You have to wrap your head around it a little bit. But yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I hope Michigan's offense shows up, and I think USC's will. But yeah, to do a game of that magnitude and have the Big Ten being coast to coast now, it's pretty exciting.
I'm glad you said exciting. I'm like I said, bizarre. The Big Ten in some of these, Oregon playing Rutgers. It's just, I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
I don't want to get into a whole.
Well, Jimmy, when I started, I was going to say when I started, the Big Ten had 10 teams, and the Pac-12 had 10 teams, and now the Pac-12 has 2 teams. And there was a Southwest Conference when I did Texas and Texas A&M. That was in the Southwest Conference. Now Texas and Texas A&M are playing in the SEC. When I started in the ACC, Florida State wasn't in the ACC. Now they're trying to get out of the ACC. So that kind of gives you a little difference on how it has been over the course of my career anyway.
Yeah. The other big change is the 12-team playoff. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it'll be great. I wish I was part of it. I mean, I think you'd be more excited if you knew you were going to do one of those games. And so from that standpoint, I feel left out. But I think every broadcaster that doesn't work for ESPN or ABC feels the same way, or maybe TNT, however they're doing that. I think it's good. I think it'll be the same teams year in and year out. I mean, there's going to be a group of 5 that's going to make it. Will they make it through the gauntlet of going through the playoffs? Probably not. If we started the playoffs right now, the SEC and the Big Ten would have 80% of who's going to be in it. And they'll probably be like that for years to come because the rich get richer. And it's always going to be those teams. I don't think the 12 teams is going to change that much in who the 12 teams are. It's just how many of those 12 teams can upset somebody else. Yeah.
I think more teams in the playoff is good, but it's too much controversy every year. It got annoying every year that every year it would be, this is a disaster. It's like, okay, let's have something without the controversy for once.
Yeah, I've had some coaches over the last couple of weeks say four wasn't good. If not four, go back to two or go to 12 or go to 16 or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's young coaches and that's older coaches. So everybody I've talked to feels the same way.
I want to go back to your career here. When I looked it up, it is extensive. We know you're from college football. We know you come from college basketball. You did Monday Night Football. You've done the NBA Finals. Any event you haven't called that you would love to call?
Yeah, Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. Um, I always told my dad when I was growing up, when I told him I wanted to be a sportscaster, and the first thing he said is, "How are you going to make any money at that?" And I go, "I don't know. We'll work on that part." And I said, "Yeah, I want to do a college football championship, Final Four, a Super Bowl, and a Triple Crown." And I don't know what I was thinking of. I can't do horse racing. You got to be a special mind to do that stuff. But those were the things that were rolling through my head
Yeah.
when I was a kid. And so I've gotten a chance to do most of them. I actually did a Final Four for the World Feed with Dick Vitale, so I count that one. And did national championships in football and so Super Bowl would be great. Um, but other than that, and doing the Olympics, that was fun. So I've done pretty much everything I wanted to do. Just couple missing links in there.
Do you remember what your dad said when you did finally become a sports broadcaster?
Yeah, he when I first got the Falcons radio job, he was kind of proud. I was 25, so I was a young guy in the league. And but he lived in Minnesota, so it's 1,200 miles away, and he really doesn't get a chance to see me or hear me. Although they did play the Vikings, I think the first year I did the Falcons, and it was in Minnesota. So he and my mom came, and they sat in the booth, and so he was pretty fired up about that. But then when I left the Falcons and went into the Vikings, that's when the pride came in because they had a big news conference and everything that I was going to be the new voice of the Vikings, and I think he bought a new suit for that one. He was pretty thrilled that his kid was on WCCO and calling the hometown team, And then he lived long enough to see me get to CBS and see me do network games. So yeah, he got more proud as it went on, and then he didn't worry so much about how he was going to make any money doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a care of itself for sure. All right, let me tell you guys about Underdog Fantasy. It's the greatest time of the year. Football is back, and it's here to stay till February. You can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite players' stats, touchdown passes, passing yards, rushing yards, all that and more on Underdog Fantasy. If you go to Underdog Fantasy, you'll see that it is very, very easy to use. Very, very smooth, very, very fun. All you do, higher or lower on player stats. You can make picks on Underdog, and it's very straightforward, and signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog, simply use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with the promo code Sports Illustrated, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Sports Illustrated to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. You must be 18 or older, 21 in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 in Alabama and Nebraska, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply, void in Colorado. If you're concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. That's 1-800-639-8783. Or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY, which is 467-369. Go play Underdog Fantasy. If you had to pick your all-time favorite game that you've called, any sport, what would it be?
Wow. I'll pick a basketball game that always is stuck in my head. It was on Fat Tuesday down at LSU, and it was Kentucky and LSU, Dale Brown against Rick Pitino. And I don't know the exact specifics, but I think LSU was up 31 with about 12 minutes to play. And normally you would give up on a game like that and just try to go through the motions. And Travis Ford and some of the guys on that Kentucky team just started. I'm waving at somebody outside, excuse me. Started raining threes, and they came back and won the game like 98-96 or something to that effect. And that was one of the most fun games I think I've ever done in basketball because I couldn't believe it was happening. Football wise, just somewhat recently, I guess it's been 5 years now, but the Joe Burrow LSU against Tua Alabama game when I think Joe threw 5 touchdown passes and Tua threw 4, and it was just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and you just kind of looked at it like, who's going to win the Heisman because the game was that fun, and it had probably 30 NFL players on the field at the same time.
Yeah.
And a lot of the SEC championship games I've done have been spectacular, going down. Jalen Hurts coming in for Tua when Tua got hurt, and Jalen comes back and wins the game. And Georgia, Alabama, all the SEC championship games have been phenomenal. Did like a Baylor Texas Tech game one time. I think there was 28 points scored in the fourth quarter, and the final was 61-58 or something. They didn't play any defense, neither one of them. Just games like that kind of stick out, and you think that was fun. Did Tom Brady's last college game in a bowl game. I did Michael Jordan's last NBA game. I did LeBron's first NBA game. So those are some of kind of the highlights, not necessarily the best games, but things that stick in my head. And I go, well, that was fun. That was good. That was cool to do.
You mentioned Brady. Have you had a chance to listen to him at all through the first 2 weeks? What do you think? Since everyone's critiquing the $375 million broadcaster.
Tom, I missed the first thing of what you said.
I said, about Brady? You mentioned him, so I just figured, have you had a chance to listen to him over the first 2 weeks, and what do you think?
I just saw a little bit of the first game, but I saw the entire game on Sunday, and I thought he started kind of slow. I don't think he's real comfortable in the booth yet, but once he got going, I thought he was fantastic. I kept wanting to say, you're not that good, whatever. And as he got rolling, he got past the first quarter, and he's working with a good friend of mine, Kevin. Kevin's awesome, and when Tom didn't quite know where to go, Kevin led him down a path, and when Tom got rolling, Kevin just let him roll, and that's a sign of a good partner. And once he got going, I like, got it. For 2 games in, he's pretty damn good. So I was impressed. And like I said, I didn't see the first week. I only heard from people that he seemed nervous and had some gaps about when to talk, when not to talk. Hey, you're a rookie in this business. It takes a minute to learn the telestrator and learn the timing, learn your people talking in your ear, and which camera's taking what. So I thought he was really good on Sunday.
It was fascinating to me that here's Tom Brady, 7-time Super Bowl champion, future Hall of Famer, greatest quarterback of all time, good-looking guy, all the money in the world. He was nervous in the first week, just like anybody else on their first day of a job.
That's right. It was like going to kindergarten for the first day of school.
When was the last time you were nervous doing a game?
Probably. Wow. I don't know. Maybe my first game back at CBS because I didn't want to screw things up, and maybe my first NFL Network game on Thursday night. Just when you're trying to impress people for the first time that maybe haven't watched you before, or they haven't watched you on that particular network or that particular night. I don't really get nervous. I get anxious. I get ready to roll. Let's go, man. You sit around in the booth for 3 hours before the game. You work 6 days to get ready for it. It's like cramming for an exam, and you just want to start the tests. And so I don't get that nervous anymore, but it'll probably be, first time at a network or the first game, and you go, okay, these guys hired me, and I don't want to, I don't want to wet my pants here on national TV.
I should know this. Who did the NFL Network games? Who was was it Mike Mayock? Who was your analyst for those games? I don't remember.
Yeah, Mike. Yeah, it was Mike Mayock, and Alex Flanagan was on the sidelines, and the whole Thursday night crew, Rich and all those guys. It was a lot of fun.
Do you get a lot of broadcasters in the business coming to you for advice?
Yeah, some of the really young guys, and then some of the younger guys that might be thinking about switching networks, or have an opportunity to go from one spot to another, and they might call and say, Ness, what do you think? And I'm like, well, where are you in the hierarchy? Where are you on the ladder, and how many rungs of the ladder are there above you, and that kind of thing. So a little bit of that, but it's mostly college kids that come up to me, at our games, when they can get to me a lot easier during basketball. They can come right down the floor and talk to me. A little harder to get to me in the booth, but yeah, I do, and I get letters and emails and stuff, and wanting kids wanting me to watch their tape of their game and that type of thing. And it takes me a while, but when I find time, I try to critique it all and get back to them.
He's not doing games, obviously, but did Nick Saban hit you up for any advice just about going into the media business?
No, he didn't. I wish he would have. I did his last radio show the Thursday night before the Iron Bowl, and I kind of felt it before the SEC championship game. The last couple of times I was in meetings with him, I think he was sort of fed up with the NIL stuff, and the transfer just wasn't his cup of tea. He's old school, and there's a little bit of frustration there, I think. And I can't say that I thought he was going to retire at that point, but looking back, the same thing happened with Steve Spurrier, doing his last game at Florida. It was, I think, against Maryland in the Orange Bowl. And I was doing an interview with him, and, they had won like 10 games. They were 10-2 or whatever, but that wasn't good enough. And he goes, Bradley, it's just not good enough anymore. You win 10 games, they don't like you, and whatever. Some of those guys, you just get to the point where you go, you know what? They're either going to the pros or they're going to retire. So, no, Nick didn't call me for advice, but man, he is taken to a duck like water. I think, what I've seen on GameDay. I think he wasn't quite sure where to look or whatever, and they got the iPads in front of him. It's probably because they, have those iPads sponsored or something. I don't think he was looking down. He knows too much about football to worry about his iPad. But, then he's sitting next to McAfee, and McAfee's going crazy, and Nick's just sitting there with his hands folded and everything. But he's been spot on. I mean, he's really good at it already.
He has been good. And ESPN's got something there to lean into with sort of like the odd couple thing with McAfee and Saban, I think.
No doubt about it. I think they did a good job putting them right next to each other.
Yeah. Couple of weird ones here before we've got to wrap up. In doing research for you coming on, I was Googling just to see if there's anything I need to know. And there was an article that came up. I forgot where it was from, but it was like, Brad Nessler with the ultimate announcer jinx. I'm always curious because fans fully believe in the announcer jinx, and I know announcers don't believe in but what is as a top play-by-play guy, and I say to you, announcer jinx, what's the first thing that comes to your head?
The kicker has never missed inside 50, whatever. I get burnt on by my friends. Like if somebody misses a kick and they'd hit 27 in a row, I get home, I go to watch the Falcons on Sunday at the same spot every week, and I walk in and they start booing me, and they're supposed to be my friends. So, yeah, the ultimate jinx is when there's a streak on the line. Sometimes I even say, I don't really want to say this, and then Gary will say, well, then don't. I don't think there's much to it, except it just happens that way sometimes. But it's usually a kicker.
Do you have a memorable, do you have a memorable one where you pulled off the announcer jinx?
Because
I think the fans are way more into it than you, but
yeah, no, I don't even think about it except when it happens, and then I hope that the guy comes back and gets a kick later in the game or something. And I think I've had some of those where somebody had a streak, missed during the game, and then came back and had a chance and won the game at the end. So they forget all about it if it's a winning kick.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you quickly about Twitter. I looked like you had an account, but you haven't tweeted in I think since March of 2003, or is that not your account?
No, I didn't have one in 2003. I did have one for a while. And my daughter was the only one.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I misspoke. Your last tweet was in 2023. 2023.
Oh, 2023.
Yeah.
Last time I even remember one was my spotter my stat guy for 25 years passed away, and I think my daughter put a picture of Pat McGrath and I up, but I don't think I've done anything since. I don't even know how to do it. My daughter Reese, once in a while, I would say, if I was at Army Navy or something and I saw something cool, I'd take a picture and I'd send it to her, and then she'd tweet something out. So I have no idea how to even do it. I got no clue. You start with this, I guess.
Yeah. Well, listen, every single play-by-play person who's ever been on this podcast, I tell them you shouldn't be on Twitter. So I don't have to give you the warning, at least. Nothing good can come of it.
I don't. No, I don't really see anything good. Plus, I don't know why anybody would care what I'm doing, or what kind of. I mean, the people that send out, here's what I had for dinner today. Who cares? I mean, I don't think anybody cares my opinion or what I'm doing or whatever. They can just complain about how I do my job. I guess that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Do you ever get a feeling, though, that your bosses look at that? Because I keep hearing more and more about how you would be surprised how many people, sort of executives at any company, look at that stuff. Or do you never hear about that stuff from CBS execs?
I assume they look at it a lot, and we have a social media department, and they would probably love me to be doing that stuff. But Jenny Dell's better at that than I am, or Gary is. And if the bosses are looking at that, then they're not watching the game. If they're worried about what somebody in their grandma's basement thinks of my performance, and they're not paying attention to what I'm actually doing, then that's a problem.
I can't let you go without bringing up Ric Flair. People who listen to this podcast know I'm a huge wrestling fan. Obviously, Ric Flair is an all-timer. You guys have a friendship. You were actually the host of the Ric Flair roast a few years ago. Tell me about your relationship with the Nature Boy.
We go back a long ways. When I kept running into him when he was with WCW, and he would be like leaving or going back home or to the next match when I was, we ran into each other at the airport all the time. And I don't know, we became friends, and then we'd go out occasionally, and that was an experience. And then, he came to my hometown one time for my charity golf tournament. And when you come to my hometown, you become family. And then when Reed passed away, his son, my wife and I were at the funeral, and then that was family of his family, the wrestling family. Then when he was going to, retire the first time from WWE and had his final match against Shawn Michaels, we went to that WrestleMania. We went to WrestleMania here in Atlanta. And I've been a big wrestling fan since I was a kid, back in the Verne Gagne days. And Rick actually started up there with AWA. So I don't know, just longtime friendship, a lot of nights out, a lot of days out, a lot of different things. I've known all of his wives. I'll just put it that way. So I know his daughter well, and both his daughters. Yeah, we just been friends. He's a different cat, and he always will be. That roast thing, some of the things that I said during that roast, forgive me, Lord. Some of that was written for me. Some of it I wouldn't say, because whoever wrote some of that stuff was pretty brutal, and some of the other wrestlers was bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, I said what I could, and I had a blast that night. And it's a roast. Yeah, that's the problem with a roast. You're going to say stuff you don't want to say stuff you don't want repeated.
At least they didn't put it on Netflix. If you were going out for a night, if you were going out for a night on the town, who would you need to be more prepared for going through the evening? Ric Flair or Bill Raftery?
I think Raft.
Really?
Because despite the fact he's older than Rick, I think he can hang longer. Now, short term, if it was a sprint, I'd go with Flair. If it was a marathon, I'd have to get ready for Raft. No doubt.
That's one of the best answers I've ever gotten to a 40 question on this podcast.
Or it's a mile run.
I thought for sure Ric Flair was going to be a lock on that question, but Raftery can go longer than that's.
Well, I know it seems unbelievable that the Nature Boy would be outdone by Bill Raftery, but I'm going to go with Raft. And when Rick hears this, I'll hear about it for sure.
I love it. Well, that's a perfect way to end this interview. I appreciate it. Let me just give everyone quick reminders. USC Michigan on CBS this Saturday. Interesting matchup. Michigan new quarterback, so hopefully they got some offense going. And Brad Nessler will have that call with Gary Danielson. Yep. And the Big Ten title game this year. So every Saturday, 3:30, sometimes 8 when they got a primetime game. Brad and Gary Danielson for CBS. Brad, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. Have a great season.
Thanks, Jimmy. I'll just leave it by saying, oh, with a kiss and whoa.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, joining me now as he does every week for our Traina Thoughts segment from WFAN Radio in New York, SNY TV in New York, my buddy Sal Licata. Sal, how are you?
Great. Everything is great. Enjoying this perfect time of year.
So chipper.
Yeah. I don't know why, but.
Yeah, I don't either. No, listen, football's back, so, that makes things a lot better.
Yeah, playoffs are, baseball. This is September, October, the two best sports months of the year with the baseball playoffs and the NFL. So after that, it's still great with the NFL, but this is it. For what we do, this is the best.
I texted Sal Sunday afternoon because I was very curious after last week where he said he's only watching Jets and Giants. I said, well, now you got the Mets. You have to watch the Mets. The Mets got relegated to an iPad on his lap. The Jets and the Giants.
Hey, it's football Sunday. I'm sorry. Maybe that'll be different next week and the following week, but I still feel like football takes precedent, and I'll put the baseball on the iPad.
All right. I like it.
Mm.
I'm just looking at my Twitter mentions because I wrote this thing today. We're taping on Tuesday about the ESPN Jason Kelce Monday night. This is why Twitter is the all-time worst thing now. Okay. I write a column basically saying that on Monday night, Jason Kelce was on way too long, unnecessary. They have Buck and Aikman. It was an Eagles home broadcast. And somehow, I'm getting comments, turning this into politics. Everyone is sick of these libs on TV constantly. They're not funny. How do you get the fact that Jason Kelce is a liberal from that column? And that's people are so sick. It's just disturbing. Anyway. As a Falcons fan, you must have really enjoyed Monday night.
It was. Now, I just want to preface it by saying I am not the same nutjob, passionate Falcon fan that I once was. I've made it very clear about that. But it's still there. That's just not something you get rid of. The main reason why I loved it is because I picked the Falcons on Friday to win the game outright. I thought based off of their defense, what I saw against Pittsburgh, even the loss, they were legit. And I also believe Sirianni is a doofus. And then to see everybody picking the Eagles, birds by 50, almost every panelist that picked the game, all picking Philadelphia, I just knew that they were underestimating Atlanta. And to see it play out the way that it did after basically watching a regional Eagles broadcast, which is what ESPN gave you, it was as gratifying a win. And, and I bet it. It was at money line, and it was as gratifying as a win as I have had in a very long time.
Did you enjoy the telecast?
No, here's what I did. Now, I was not going to do this because I was into the game, and I love Buck and Aikman.
Me too.
I had enough, and I don't give a shit about Jason Kelce or Travis for that matter, but when it became too over the top with the Eagles, I'm enough, and I went to the Manning cast. And they had Matt Ryan on, and they were, even though Matt Ryan is known to be a Falcon, obviously, it wasn't biased like that. It was just, I was watching the game with the Mannings and Matt Ryan, and it made it more enjoyable. So I
think
went
you can be biased on the Manning cast. That's what the Manning cast is for.
Right.
But to do what they did on the regular telecast was absurd. It was absurd. And I love Buck and Aikman. And I was this is it just goes. It was going on and on and on and on and on. And it's not necessary. And again, this is what I wrote, and no one's ever going to convince me otherwise. They did it because of Taylor Swift. There's no doubt in my mind that's why they did it. Because when he said, my shirt is too tight for my tits last week, and that went viral, then New Heights, Travis and Jason, on their podcast talked about it, and Travis said, oh, I was watching that with Taylor. She loved it. So I'm sure somebody at ESPN heard that and was like, oh, okay, Taylor's watching Jason. Let's get Jason on for as much as we can. And then maybe they'll talk about it on their very, very, very popular podcast. So then we had to get 5 hours of the Jason Kelce show in the middle of a game. It was ridiculous.
They shook his hand to say goodbye. It seemed like...
Well, that I don't mind because he's like a colleague of theirs now. He's on their pregame show.
No, but I'm saying like they shook his hand saying like that it was over, and then they came back and he was still there.
Right.
They said goodbye to him. He basically was like, "Oh, the beers aren't up here," which was actually a funny line. Hey, I like it up here, but he was still there. Like he almost wanted to leave, and they just kept him too long. Good God.
Right. Yeah, it was a problem. And just a couple of other broadcasting notes since we're on this theme. I wrote this too on Monday. I thought Brady was much improved. He was actually a really good listen on the Cowboys-Saints game. He's going to get better. I said along, I think he's going to be great. Stand by it. It is crazy to me that Tom Brady was nervous in week 1, but he was. And he had that great line when the rookie receiver slipped for the Cowboys. And Burkhardt said, should Dak go back to him? And Tom goes, not today. And he didn't say not today as a joke or to be funny. He said it like as a savage. So more of that would be good.
That's what's going to make him great. I didn't watch any of that, but I look forward to watching him more because I want that type of stuff.
The one thing I don't like about what's going on now with Brady is he's the Cowboys again now for the 3rd week in a row. They're doing the Cowboys-Ravens on Sunday.
Why?
But he can't do the Cowboys in week 4 because they play on Thursday night against the Giants.
But why would they even have it 3 games in a row? Is that normal?
Well, that's their best game on Sunday is Ravens-Cowboys. They're going to put him on the best game every week. He's their lead announcer. So it's, Ravens-Cowboys, 425. That's a layup that he's going to do that game. So it just worked out where it's 3 weeks in a row. Also, I wanted to touch on this for anyone out there listening who's a degenerate bettor. It is crazy what's going on with the underdogs. Just bet underdogs in all these games, and you're going to, it's crazy. I follow a guy on Twitter. I don't know if you follow him, but you should. He's a good guy for the betting stuff. It's Ben Fawkes. It's at BFAWKES 22. Covers gambling. How about this? On Sunday, underdogs, no, not Sunday, in the first 2 weeks of the season, so week 1, week 2, underdogs who are getting 5.5 or more points, 9-1, and 5 of them outright winners. And then there was another stat he had just about reaction from 3 Las Vegas odds makers on Falcons win. Biggest win of the weekend. Pretty good result, but we already had a good 4 days. Huge. Everyone's just betting favorites like crazy. And these underdogs just take points. That is the lesson here.
Now, first of all, I've always been more of a underdog bettor. I'll always take the points. I've gotten burnt by that, obviously, many times. There is no exact science. I do think the majority of people bet favorites, but don't you think that will change at some point?
It should start changing now,
right?
Because the first 2 weeks, he had week 2 most lopsided sides. 89% of the bets were on the Chargers. They covered. 86% on the Niners, no. 84% on the Eagles, no. 83% on the Ravens, no. I mean, start taking points if you're a bettor. That's the lesson.
But some of it just doesn't make any sense. Again, I know whatever. It is what it is. There is no guarantee, but some of it makes no sense why 84% of the people would bet Philadelphia over. The favorites don't win every week, or the Ravens
because people go off of what happened the week before.
Yeah, well, right, okay.
That's what it's very simple.
Yeah, well, but even if you watch the week before, and also in the NFL now, week 1, week 2, week 3, it's by
preseason weeks. Basically,
that's exactly right. We've been talking about this whole preseason into now the regular season. By week 4 or 5, you could start to say, "All right, I think I have an idea of what this team is now."
Yeah, but getting 5.5 points, underdogs getting 5.5 or more, 9-1 in the first 2 weeks. So if you see big spreads, take the points. That's basically the lesson here. Did you see that? They announced it. They officially announced it right before we started taping the pod. The WWE and NBC are bringing back Saturday night's main event. First episode, December 14th And it's going to be 10 minutes from my house at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Look at Sal's face.
Wow. Now,
I have to go. I have to go.
Here's the problem with that. Is that in my mind, you say Saturday night main event, and I'm thinking Junkyard Dog and Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan. But I'll tell you this: I remember as a kid, those are some of the most impactful, events or whatever, or shows that I remember watching as a kid. Pay-per-views were great, but it wasn't like it is now. And back then, when you had Saturday night main event, it felt like a pay-per-view on regular TV back then.
Well, that's what this is going to be. I'm sure they'll have Roman and Cody, and they'll load up everyone because it's going to be on NBC. And it's at the Nassau Coliseum. So
wow. Now I'm fascinated by this for many, many reasons. Number one, like the whole NBC thing was Vince McMahon and
Dick Ebersol.
Dick Ebersol, right? So I'm sure that they still have a relationship, but obviously Vince is completely out of the picture, right?
Yeah, he's out of the picture. But they have a deal because SmackDown, which used to be on Fox, is now on USA. USA is the NBC network. So it's a new contract with NBC. I think it's NBC Universal is the technical name, and this is part of that deal with SmackDown on Friday nights. Raw will be on Netflix starting in January.
Are they going to have the same banner? And
they should.
Yeah,
they should. Here's what they should do too. What they should do is recreate what I would say is probably. I'll go top 5. I'll say a top 5 all-time wrestling moment ever in the history of the profession was the twin referee screw job on the Saturday Night's Main Event with Andre, Hulk, and Ted DiBiase.
Yeah.
And that was as good as it got.
There were times that was as good as it got. There were times that, and maybe a time specifically, I remember watching Saturday Main Event and it had to get off the air. And I remember it still continuing. And I'm like, wait, I need to see what's going on. But I didn't see it because it either cut off or, whatever. The show ended. And I think it might have been actually Heart Foundation where they tried to quickly... Right? Like they tried to quickly end the match. But I remember feeling like, wait, you can't leave now. I need to see what's going on.
But they did that on purpose because it was taped. It wasn't live.
Right, but didn't they? And there was also one that I remember watching back in. I remember feeling as a kid, one ended without knowing the end. And I was like, what the hell is that? And then going back.
But that's on purpose.
Right. And then going back watching another one where like they quickly finished the match between Heart Foundation and I want to say Strike Force.
Right.
I don't know.
That makes sense. How about this? So that Saturday night's main event where they had the twin referees that Ted DiBiase paid, the $1 Million Man, and then he gave the belt to Andre gave the belt to the $1 Million Man. Do you know 33 million people watched that program?
That's insane.
It's beyond insane.
I remember that one well. February 5th, 1989, right?
I don't remember the date, but
February 6th, somewhere on.
33 million watched it. Speaking of wrestling, one last wrestling thing before we move on. Do you know whose birthday is today, on Tuesday when we're taping this?
No.
Our favorite, Jim Cornette.
Oh, is it?
Who I would love to see back in the WWE in some capacity. But since it is Jim Cornette's birthday, I just want to say, if you're listening to this and you're a wrestling fan in any way, shape, or form, as soon as you're done listening to the podcast, go leave a review on Apple. Then go to YouTube, type in Jim Cornette Montreal Screwjob, and you'll have the best 13 minutes of your day. That's all I've got to say.
Hey, when's that Vince doc coming out? A couple of weeks?
September 25th.
So, we're getting close to that too. Okay.
Yeah, we're getting close. About a week. What else do I have here? I assume. Do you watch The Bear?
Yes.
Now, so the Emmys were the other night. They win every award at every Emmys. But I guess now there's a lot of controversy.
It's not a comedy.
Okay, I wanted to get your take on that.
It's not. We just binged within the last month.
Right.
I love the show.
Me too.
I like certain seasons more than others, but it's definitely not a comedy. Come on.
I didn't love the last season. I loved the first 2. I didn't love the last one. But it is ridiculous that they call themselves a comedy.
Right.
So,
well, how do they win? And how do they win awards based on being a comedy when the show's not like it's funny in certain aspects, but it's not a comedy?
I mean, listen, there are moments in every episode when you will laugh.
Right.
But it's not a comedy. I mean, we're pushing the envelope there.
Right.
It's a great show. It is funny, but it's not a comedy.
The actors and actresses are phenomenal.
Yes.
But it's definitely not a comedy.
Did you see the John Oliver thing at the Emmys? Because
I saw the clip. That I thought was hilarious.
His line about "I feel like Sarah McLachlan" was one of the funniest things I've ever heard. If you didn't see the clip, John Oliver wins an Emmy. He gets up there, he's giving his speech, and he starts to talk about his recently deceased dog, and they start playing the music to play him off.
But they didn't. He didn't say that the dog died yet, right?
He was building up to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he hit the music, and he's like, "Oh, you can see it in his face, like you idiot! I'm about to announce that my dog died, but you hit the music." Can I ask you something though?
Yes.
I didn't get I'm afraid of what's going to follow here.
Yeah.
I didn't get the Sarah McLachlan reference.
There's a very famous commercial that's been around for years for like some dog rescue organization that she's.
I got it.
So she's on the commercial talking all like, serious, low key, despondent, talking about dogs that need to be rescued.
All right. Okay.
And they play so that's why he said, I feel like, because he's talking about his dog who just died, and they start playing that music. Yeah. Yeah.
That is funny.
It was very funny. Speaking of people on HBO, I'm very, very upset because did you see that Larry is doing I don't think it's stand-up, but he's doing like a tour, like a conversations with stand-up type of thing.
Yeah.
No, New York.
Where's the closest one?
Philadelphia. And it's on a Tuesday.
Yeah, who the hell could do that?
I would go. I would take the day off and go if you wanted to go. But you probably have Mets.
There's no way I can. When is it?
Right. It's a Tuesday.
Yeah, but like what month are we talking
October something.
Yeah, no
That's
way.
Why
It
you can't go.
Might be playoffs.
That's what I'm saying. We got to go to freaking Philadelphia. Nothing in New York. It's October 22nd.
Don't even know what it is. Yeah, that's World Series time. Could be Mets.
Well, I'll root for the Mets and Yankees to get eliminated, and then we can go.
But we don't even know what he's doing. We don't know if he's doing.
It's called a. It's called a. I don't know what the hell. I just had it here. Let's see. A conversation with Larry David. I don't need any more information. I'm sold right there. Sold. Sign me up. If it was in New York, I'd be there instantly. And I want to go to Philly. If the Mets and Yankees are out, we'll do a little trip.
I mean, I could probably, from where I am in Jersey now, I could probably do Philly in one night.
Actually, that's true. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. All right. We'll have to look into it. We'll see.
All right. Couple other things. The Robert De Niro, Anne Hathaway movie, The Intern.
Yes.
Have you seen it?
A long time ago, yeah.
Like it, hate it, didn't like it, loved it?
I thought it was fine. I mean, I like Anne Hathaway, and I thought it was okay for what it was. I wasn't expecting,
Don't ask me why, but for some reason, I love that movie. Like when I see it on like TBS or whatever, HBO, like I got to leave it on for a little bit. Robert De Niro is an intern. There's something about it.
I thought it was fine.
I bring it up because my good buddy Kyle Brandt on Good Morning Football this week made a very innocent comment about like calling it a bad movie or something. He was riffing on De Niro and something, and he said, oh, like a stupid movie like The Intern or something. And then that was on Good Morning Football. And then Kyle does a podcast, which is actually a phenomenal format for a podcast. It's 10 takes in 10 minutes. So it's a 10-minute podcast, which is beautiful. And he gives you 10 takes. And during that podcast, he talked about how he received massive backlash from people defending The Intern and ripping him for saying it was a stupid movie. So when I was listening to his podcast, I screen grabbed the image off the phone, sent him, and I'm like, I love The Intern. He's like, he was blown away that everyone loves The Intern. So I wanted to get your take because I do like that. And again, it's not because I know what's going to happen. People are going to be like, oh, it's not a cinematic masterpiece by any stretch of time. It's just one of those enjoyable movies.
All right. Right. It's not Gone with the Wind, Jimmy.
As Chris Russo would say.
Yeah. Right.
It's not Gone with the Wind. It's funny. I called Dog one day last week about something something was going on with a PR guy that was annoying me. I don't want to get into it. And he right away. He's like, who you betting? Who you betting? Who you betting? Who you betting? Degenerate. All right, last thing. I just wanted to give you an update. Last week, I told you the story about a friend of mine who was a Patriot fan, went on Facebook. His cousin had a picture of his baby in an Eagles shirt, and he left the comment, gross. And then the grandmother said it was the most disgusting comment she's ever seen on Facebook. He has still had zero communication with the cousin. They have cut him out of his life for that comment.
Wow.
I love this story so much.
Now, I must say that's an interesting development here, meaning that I can maybe throw that one into the playbook. And if there's some family members who I don't want in my life anymore, or just want to not be bothered with invites or this or that, I know what to do.
That's a brilliant plan.
Yeah, negative comment on their picture. Ooh.
You get it. You get an invitation in the mail to some god awful christening or baptism or some nonsense like that. You go on Facebook, you see a picture, ugly baby, boom, disinvited, and you're in on the couch for your football Sunday.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So that the cousin whose kid it is has cut him off. So it's rough out there on social media. The comments. You're like barely on Twitter, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted a little bit the other night during a Met game, but I'm enjoying life a lot more without it.
I meant to tell you, I don't like what you do now. I don't like it at all.
What?
Because you tweet out these things and I have no idea what they mean.
You only would know if you're following along in real time.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Right, but who else is going back? Like, I guess if you're looking at it in a different. Like if you're looking at it and following along the timeline, it would be in order as what's going on that night. If it's just like if it pops up in the For You section, you'd have no idea, right?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't click on the For You section if you paid me to, but yeah, I guess that's true.
So then, So what would be bothrsome to you?
Because here's what happens: I'll go on Twitter.
Yeah.
Not on For You. I will never go to For You. I'm on my follows.
Right.
And I see, okay, Sal Licata, and you wrote. That was terrible. Well, what does he do? I don't know what he means. What is this in reference to?
Yeah, fair enough.
Or, you'll be like, oh, well. I'm like, what is going on with Sal?
That was an impressive AB. Yeah, I am.
Well, that was an impressive AB I can figure out. You're watching the Meg.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of my last tweet or whatever. But yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, clean it up. All
right.
All right, Sal. Anything? I mean, I hate doing this early in the week. Anything you like in week 3? You haven't looked yet.
I actually have not looked yet. You have the lines up in front of you?
I have the phone right here. I haven't looked, but
it's Tuesday.
I can't think about it till Thursday at the earliest.
Right. Like I know we do it sometimes on the pod, but like generally. I won't look. I'll look at the Thursday night game Thursday. I know we get the Jets and Patriots this week. What is
Jets
the line
minus
on that one?
6.5.
Yeah, I'd probably lean. I know the Pats have been better. I'd probably lean toward the Jets in that one. And
I will take the Patriots. I'm going to take the points. I'm going to start taking points.
I don't look at the lines until Friday. You just hard to,
What do you think of Ravens -1 at the Cowboys in the Brady game?
God, I would not touch that game.
Me either. Like you can't. How do you pick that game?
I have no idea. My gut is saying Cowboys, but are the Ravens going to go 0-3? Where is the game?
Dallas.
God, that's going to be. I mean, is that a 4:25?
Yeah.
Nice. So I have Jets Thursday, Giants at 1:00, Giants Browns 1:00, and then that's a big national game that would have my interest.
Well, you're going to get another Fox game. I mean, you're going to get the Giants are on. The Giants are on Fox, so you're going to get a CBS game at 1:00 as well.
Well, I'm just going to lock in on the Giants. By the way, your recommendation of the 2-box, even though it doesn't fill the screen, it was great.
Yeah,
I was actually able to watch both games and just toggle the sound back and forth. It was great. So
yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah,
and also this coming week, 2 Monday night games.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I do.
Why?
The more the merrier.
Yeah, I guess then it makes the 1:00 window better.
I didn't like 10 games at 1:00 this past week.
It's too much.
That was too much.
Yeah.
8 max should be the rule. All right,
yeah.
That's it.
All right.
All right, we'll see you next week.
All right.
Take it easy. All right, my many thanks to Brad Nessler and Sal Licata. Hope you guys enjoyed the pod. If you did and you're not a subscriber, make sure you subscribe to SI Media with Jimmy Traina. Make sure you listen to past episodes if you've missed any. Kevin Clark from ESPN was on the podcast last week. Scott Van Pelt 2 weeks ago. Brian Curtis from The Ringer. Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Mad Dog Russo, all recent guests. So if you missed any of those interviews, check them out in the archives. Subscribe to SI Media with Jimmy Traina and leave a review on Apple. All right. That wraps it up. Should have Jeff Passan from ESPN on the pod next week, so that should be good as well. I don't like to tease them, but that one is locked in, so should be good. All right. We'll see you next week. Stay safe and take care.